We have very prominent educationist, accounts person, and very knowledgeable speaker, motivational speaker, author, journalist, Dr. A.K. Pansari. Pansari sir is Chancellor of Royal Global University, founder of many educational institutes. He is founder of newspapers. His institution in himself. He has a passion for education, and moreover, he has passion for quality. Whatever he does with superlative degree. So when in education, as an educationist, the dream that we want to fulfill, we feel somewhere we are feeling problem, not able to achieve. We all are feeling text, we feel problem, we feel little suffocated. So discuss the various issues which generally people avoid to discuss. Tell me, people think that okay, maybe let us be hush and hush like that. Let us, it is a time in democracy that we should have live debate. We should have debate everywhere. Whatever result will come, that's different. What is the best outcome? Democracy best always prevails. But discussion is very much important. So welcome, Dr. A.K. Pansari, sir, in this presidential talks. You are most welcome. Our association in education is very long, and your education is almost more than 2 decades now, and you have grown from school to university, you have seen primary, secondary, tertiary, research, all the sector of education. So you are one of the most pertinent person to discuss and talk about the issues that we are discussing today. So, sir, I want to know from you, as a representative of the school founders, the school educationists all around, what do you feel are the impact on a school at this moment because of lockdown? School as such is suffering, especially the promise that we have made to do, and how financial problems are curbing our aim ability to perform the best of it. Sir.
Thank you, Dr. Prakash, and thank you very much for the beautiful words spoken for me. I think it will be good that let me complete my topic, my derivation on the topic, which was in fact long-term impact of pandemic on small school finances. So, good evening, listeners. Uh, you know the topic of the day, and we all are suffering from the pandemic, now passing through the second phase of second wave of pandemic COVID-19. Everybody is infected. All sectors are affected. Education is not an exception. Rather, education sector has been impacted and affected very, very badly. And once education is impacted and affected, everybody is affected. Everybody has a school going or higher education, college going child. And at the moment, while there are partial lockdown, there cannot be anything like partial lockdown to the schools. Schools are totally, campuses are shut down, campuses are closed. It is only the online teaching which is happening. While pandemic affected education, once it affects education, it affects the youth of the society. Youth means our future generation, means our nation as a whole. We always talked about the quality of education, the system of education in India, and there was long drawn discussion as to there should be a change in the or the whole education system should be restructured. And after a lot of deliberations, a new policy came up as NEP 2020. We were very hopeful of overall overall housing of the education system. But unfortunately, during this transitional phase, we faced with pandemic. Now, as a passing reference, I'll just for the listener, we like to tell something about the beautiful NEP 2020, which could have taken care of and which will eventually take care of many things, including this speaks of our Sanskrit language as such, our sanskar, and our sansarik jnana. I mean to say sansarik jnana to the students. This speaks of nation first, character must. There is no scope for rote learning in the new education policy. It will be India centric, Bharat centric, but global perspective. There will be, and there is more thrust on research based education, more focus on vocational education, and the students produced will be skillful. They will be not unemployed, educated youth, rather, they will be the employable, skilled, young youth of the nation. So, with that beauty, we are quite hopeful that in times to come, we'll have great education in India ahead.
Mm.
While education must go, but at the same time, life is very important. So we are passing through a crucial stage where we have to take a decision. Some of the states are taking decisions to open the school, but in my personal view, as the saying goes, once bitten, twice shy. We were little careless to invite the second wave. Now we have to be very, very careful not to see the third wave, but at the same time, education must go. So there has to be good deliberation, and we must open the school at the most opportune time. And we know that the schools were the first part to shut down, and the school campuses will be the last to open as well. While we talk about the school, it's education as such, even the higher education, but the topic today is about the school. So I'll confine my discussion on the school education. Before I proceed further, let me clarify. When we talk about this topic about the finances of the long-term impact of pandemic on the school finances, primarily will, and everybody knows that we are going to talk about the private school education. There is a wrong perception about the private school education, private school promoters. Rather, there is a very negative perception. Let me first, in my preamble of this topic, clarify that let us know that half of the population of the students going to the school, which is around 24 crore in India at the moment, 50% students are going to the private schools. There are 4 lakh private unaided government schools in the country. Since the government is unable to provide education, it's the private, beginning with this some philanthropic people with philanthropic idea who started the school early after the independence in India, and their whole idea was to provide quality education to the people, rather education to the people to whom government is not able to provide. So there is no reason that there should be negativity about the private schools. Moreover, the perception about the private schools are based on the some of the private schools which may have some of the reasons that people may have some negative about them. But let the listeners know that out of the 12 crore students going to the private schools, about 8 crore, 7.9 crore of students are going to those schools whose fees are affordable and low cost, less than 1,000 per month.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, the average fees of private school is less than the average cost of per child per month spent by the government.
Very true.
This figure itself clearly gives an impression that private school promoters are doing justice to the country, justice to the citizen of this nation. Fortunately, the students, the children of the politicians, the bureaucrats, the educationists, the highest strata of the society, everybody are sending their children to the private schools, and yet there are a lot of hue and cry, and the most hue and cry has been seen during this pandemic. I'll request the parents, after I have completed the talk, why the parents should be more accommodative, they should be more listening towards the school management rather than doing hue and cry about cutting of the fees, etc. I don't know why the government is also has gone in the recent years little such provisions in the income tax and fees regulation committees being acts are being passed in different states to control the fees, whereas there is Supreme Court well said decision on the issue that the fees cannot be controlled by the government. the fees of the school, private school, could be as per or commensurate with the quality of education and the quality of the infrastructure. But why I don't know the government, I believe that at least considering the fact that the schools are passing through such bad situation financially, government should come ahead with so many incentives, including not making any restriction, because this is the era where people can send their children to the government schools. There are many options. They can send to a schools where as much as their pocket allows. Uh, on this count, I also will say that gradually a lot of people came ahead to open the private schools. But most people who came ahead to open the schools, very few came with the idea of making money in the private schools. In this context, I will refer two slokas of Chanakya. One, अधमा धनमिच्छन्ति धनम मानम च मध्यमा उत्तम मानमिच्छन्ति मानो ही महताम धनम। निष्कृष्ट लोग धन की कामना करते हैं, मध्यम लोग धन और यश दोनों की कामना करते हैं, पर उत्तम प्राणी सिर्फ यश होने चाहिए। I think most of the people with the idea of making image in the society, यश प्राप्त करने के लिए उन्होंने they have opened private schools and they are doing the good job of, you know, कहा गया है अन्नदानम परम दानम विद्यादानम अतः परम अन्नेन क्षणिका तृप्ति यावत जीवन च विद्या। Providing food, we will translate in English, providing food to the poor and needy people is the best charitable deed, but making people learned by teaching them is the supreme form of charity. Food gives momentary satisfaction, but the knowledge will empower them for life to lead a satisfactory life. If the private promoters are doing such great job, why they should not be respected? Why they should not be, I mean to say, given all kind of salutes, and the government and public in general should think that these schools are not for making money, rather the idea of the management is to image building and providing quality education as such. Before again I proceed to the topic, I like to speak about the structure of the schools. Let the listeners know that in India, school was privatized, education was privatized, but not fully. It was partial privatization, so much so that a proprietor, a company cannot open a school or college for that matter. The structure has to be that the ownership has to be to a society, to a trust, or to a company under Section 25, which I will not discuss in detail, but many must be knowing as to the company under Section 25 for the charitable purposes and all that. Of course, some of the state government has allowed some private people as the proprietor or partnership firm to run the schools, like in Assam also it is being done. So it was a work half done. Now the government in the new education policy also inviting top 100 universities of the world to come to open their campus in India. So I believe there will be liberalized policy. There has to be change in the act, and to have the level playing field, it cannot be two acts for the people coming from outside and the ones which running the school or education institution in India. That comes the day, I think there will be huge development in the education sector in India. Now, coming to pandemic vis-a-vis schools. This pandemic has impacted schools in twofold. One, to the student, the other to the school. About student means quality of education, and school means basically school finances. Now let us discuss about the impact on the students. Since March 20, we know that the school students are not coming to the campus, and lot of things happens out of the four walls of the classroom. That is not happening. Through online, we are just able to complete the syllabus, but not what lot of things used to happen in the campus. Practical experiments cannot happen to the fullest possible extent. Only some of the things which could be shown in the computer can be done. There could be a lot of learning through excursion, exchange programs, seminars, workshops that are not happening. In fact, co-curricular activities could be displayed or could be done digitally to the extent of maximum, I believe, 50%. And sports, of course, almost nil, except some PT training or yoga training, nothing could be done during online classes. During this pandemic, many of the schools have not been able to retain the teachers as they could not pay the salary of the teachers. Under these circumstances, some of the experienced old teachers have left a particular schools, which has also impacted the online education itself. Now, examination is the most important in our existing structure of education. But just uh, let us dream what kind of examinations now we are, I mean to say, promoting the students based on even the weekly test or term test, even the CBSE board examinations. So these examinations justify to what extent is a question mark. Now, primary, especially the toddlers, the children of 2.5 years, 3.5 years, 5 years, 6 years, how much education is happening, how much overall development of these children happens in pre-primary schools is a big challenge. I think the learning among these group happens more by peer group. That is not happening online. Similarly, even for the teenagers, lot of community learning, no, lot of social etiquettes which takes place in physical classes that are not happening. The only advantage out of this all odd situation where we have somehow been able to, as an optional plan, online education, is that we could save one valuable year of the students, maybe the second year as well. But it will be the future which will tell as much as to how much we could deliver within these 2 years, what kind of skillful students we have produced finally. Now coming to the school finances. When we talk about the school finances, primarily there are revenue receipts from fees and basically expenditures. The school expenditures are of primarily two types: fixed expenditure and variable expenditure. The fixed expenditures are salary. Most of the school spend 40 to 60% of their total receipt from the fees in the form of salary
We
to
are
the
also.
teachers and other staff. Just imagine 40 to 60%. So major chunk of their expenditure is spent on the salary. Then they have lease rent on land and building. There are many schools which have their own land, and there are many who take on rent. Interest, most of the schools have taken loan. Basically those schools which have been set up in the last couple of years, maybe 10, 15 years. Interest burden is a huge burden, which is a fixed expenditure. There are two components of power. One part is fixed, one is variable. The fixed part of the power, people talk, friends talk. अरे अभी तो बिजली से सब अंदर कुछ खर्चा ही नहीं है. But the fixed part of the power expenditure is happening. They're selling to non-teaching staff, various warranty contracts, depreciation, municipal tax, land revenue, and many other taxes expenditures are really happening, whether the school opens or the school off, these expenditures happens. And these forms the major part, maybe 80 to 90% of the total expenditure of any school. Now, the variable expenditure, like variable part of the power, generator, fuel, car running expenses, maintenance, printing and stationery, expenditure on function, events, seminars and workshops, sports equipment and consumable, dresses of the uniform and the uniform of the higher staff. These may, of course, will not be happening, which forms very little, 5 to 10% at least. And the major issue is about the school buses, which are standing, but still all the expenditures are happening. The salary to the driver, helpers, interest on the loan, the road tax, what not, insurance premium, except the fuel, you have all the expenditures which are happening. Similar is the case with the boarding school or the hostels, except the ration, except a variable part of the power. Everything is being spent. So there is a very less amount of saving as far as expenditure part is concerned. Now, coming to the financial part, the receipt part. Before that, let me clarify as to what kind of schools normally we have. We have government schools, we have private schools. Today we are going to discuss about the private schools. But let me tell you, the government school will also be impacted. As far as present situation, as you asked me, presently the private schools education is badly impacted. Because of the big digital gap, I think their quality of education is far worse than, I mean to say, they have not been able to justify as much of the budget allocation in the education sector, and that will impact the government school as well in times to come. So future impact on the financial of the school in case of the government school will also be there, that the quality will be compromised. Regarding private school, the schools are primarily four types: full boarding school, day come boarding school, or a day school. Normally, out of these 4 lakh schools, most of the schools will be, I don't know the number, but maybe 3,90,000 or something like that schools will be day schools, where day scholars go in the morning and come back in the evening. Then again, we can divide the schools into big and very big, where investments are more than 100 crore or so. There could be medium-sized school, there could be very, very small school. Then we could divide the schools amongst very old schools, maybe 30, 40 years old. There will be schools with 30 plus, 30 to 40 in between, maybe 30 years plus a school, 10 to 30 years, and below 10. The schools whose age is 10 years, say like Royal Global Schools, where I'm the chairman, the school is just into its 9th year. Every school will be impacted, whether boarding, non-boarding, big, small, every will be impacted. But I tell you, the highest impact will be on those 80% of the schools whose fees is below 1,000. These schools are going to be impacted financially the most. And those will be the concern of the all today and for the government as well. But at the same time, there is another category of schools. The schools which have invested more than 100 crore, I mean to say in one system of division, the schools of bigger nature investing more than 100 crore, but their age is less than 10 years. They are again going to suffer the most because they have taken huge loan for that 100 plus crore investment. And the interest burden is huge, which is happening. Fees is not coming in full shape. That is going to impact them as well. The source of revenue in any school is either donation by the corporate houses in their CSR, or loans, private or the government, I mean to say bank loans, but primarily fees. Now, uh, these are fees is badly affected. Let us talk first about the boarding school, and first talk about the boarding school of the top-notch boarding school of the country, whose boarding school fees must be 5 lakh to 20 lakh. Now, let us examine the impact on those schools. See, these schools, no notification from the government has come to cut their fees. There is no court decision. Parents of these schools are of very, very financially high strata of the society, and they have never made any hue and cry about the fees paying that school, and they have got the admission of their ward after very much difficulty. There are no dropouts, and since these schools are, most of them are very, very old, they hardly have any interest burden. So I think these schools will not be impacted much. Their expenditure, their fees, I am told that some of the school has not reduced, such boarding school has not reduced fees at all. Rather, they were supposed to increase 10% of the fees, which they have not done. Yes, there is some impact on these schools about the new admissions because there is less mobility. So new admission in the last year were little less, but overall impact on these schools will be negligible. Major impact in all other category of the schools. The reasons being less new admission, one, two, many more dropouts, low fees collection, delay fees collection, no increase in the fees in the year 2021 and 2021-22. Most of the schools and most of the government has barred them to increase the fees, and so much also most of the schools have not increased the fees in 2021 and 2021-22. There are various government notifications without any justification, and various states have passed various notifications cutting the fees to 25% at various percentage, which are, of course, the matters are sub judice. Of course, the most important case is of one Rajasthan High Court, which was the Supreme Court decision is there. For the listeners, it's a very important decision of the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court has advised the management that they should be uh, liberal enough just to raise as much as fee, much fees as they have saving on expenditure. In that particular case, they have advised 15%. So some schools are saving just 5% in expenditure, they can waive 5% or something like that. Now, due to less collection of fees, many schools have not been able to pay salary to the teachers. They have not paid salary to the teacher, or they could not pay in time. There is the position where the quality is compromised. Already because of the online system, the quality is compromised. Once experienced teachers are not teaching, quality is further compromised. That's not very good. Quality compromise leads to uh, poor young population of the. We are a young nation, but just young nation by age will not be enough. Our young nation should be skillful young nation. That may be impacted. Now here is the role of the government to rescue these schools so that our young generation, the school finances are not affected, young generation is not impacted, our nation is not impacted. Now, what we can expect of the power? Reasonable and just be reasonable and just in giving any notification. Of course, the Supreme Court has now barred any state to give any notification cutting fees of any school. Waiver of various taxes. Government could come ahead to raise municipal tax, land revenue, urban tax, and many more such taxes which they can. Government should come with some interest waiver scheme for those schools who have taken loan. There could be some interest waiver scheme, and then they can come up with some new policy where the bank can provide interest at a lower rate to the existing schools to take loans to meet their liquidity issues. Power concession could be there. Like in the state government in Assam, the fixed power concession was given for the month of April, May, June 20, but then the schools have not been opened since March. Almost in between 1 2 months, their schools were there. So I believe that most of the state government can allow the fixed power tariff concession. I mean to say, not to take that part of the fixed fees power from by the schools, because schools are closed since March 2020. And I also propose the government to do away with all the fees regulation authorities, that the act wherever it has been passed, like in Gujarat and West Bengal and Assam also, we do not find any justification when there is a Supreme Court verdict that there cannot be any restriction on fees and it could be commensurate with the infrastructure and quality of education. We do not find any reasoning that the state government have their fees regulation authority, which is a big blow to the private schools. Now, due to these financial issues, the school will not be able to pay the loan in time, or they will not be able to pay at all, which will have a long-term impact on the financials of the school. Why? Their rating will be bad. Once their rating will be poor, their interest rate will increase, and they will not be able to take further interest for expansion or whatever
Yes.
purpose. There will be extra load of IT infrastructure, because now the kind of era we are passing through, we have to spend a lot of money on IT infrastructure, which will also create further liquidity problem. The fall in the GER, gross enrollment ratio, overall in the country, the admissions are lower due to lower admission, and at the same time, they are poor quality. There will be less revenue by most of the schools. Another impact, as you asked me, multicultural environment of education. Now, the students from across were going to another area of the schools. A lot of people from Assam will go to Pune and all that. Now, due to this pandemic, people will like to study in their own place, native place. That multicultural environment will be lacking. Financial constraints will also lead to no increment of salary to the teachers, lead to more attrition and dissatisfaction among the teachers, leading to poor output, poor performance. Now, buildings are deteriorating, buses are becoming dilapidated conditions. These will need huge amount of expenditure, capital expenditure for renovation, purchase of new buses. The schools are already in financial problem. Libraries will be needing a lot of books, but since the school will be in financial crisis, they will not be able to do that, which will have an impact on their financials and impact on the quality of education. Now we will have to spend a lot of expenditure to make the schools COVID-proof as well, which will be an additional burden on them. Now many schools have got extra land for big playgrounds for expansion and all that. Some of the school will be forced to sell that extra land. Now see, to combat with the present situation, their liquidity problem, they will have to sell this land. But see the long-term impact. The land which could have been used for playgrounds, which could have been used for auditorium, which could have been used for further expansion, if sold, see the progress of a school. Now, coming to the concluding part of this topic about the financials of the school. First, there is a paper report that thousands of schools in the country, 1,000, more than 1,000 schools are up for sale. Now, who made these schools? These schools are made by people like Dr. Ashok Pansari, who are hardcore educationists. Somehow they could, with their savings and taking bank loan and loans from relatives, selling their own property, made a school. Now, these kind of people who had made schools over the period, adding brick by brick, full heart and soul was there with that school. Quality education was, because education was their passion. Now, under these circumstances, those 1,000 school owners who were educationists are bound to sell the school. Who are going to purchase the schools? The opportunists, the people who will look it as a investment in sales. As it is, a school of 10 crore will be sold for 5 crore, and then he will not see the quality education. Very few, maybe some good philanthropic people will also come here to purchase. But in my perception, most will come it as a business opportunity, which is going to damage our quality of education. That's where the future is going to be affected, and that's the area where government should come to play their role and rescue these kind of 1,000 and many more 1,000 schools to see that they are helped and these schools are not being changed. The hands of the managements are not changed. There are schools with huge surpluses in their hand. Now this surplus will be depleted for these 2 years and thereafter also, because of the liquidity gap of these years, this surplus, which were earmarked for future expansion, for making auditorium, for creating a lot of labs, etc. Now see, everywhere, wherever finance is there, where quality of education is there. There is another long-term impact on finance. Since these 2 years, we have not increased the fees, and most schools increase 5 to 10% every year. Now, the fees which should have been there in the year 23-24 will not be there because they have not increased in these 2 years. They will not be able to increase 30% in year 3. They will increase maybe 10% in that year. So revenue of that year is impacted. Expenditure due to inflation already increasing. So there will be huge impact on finances leading to the quality of education. And the last and the final impact in the concluding part, which of course, as an educationist, steering away from the financial impact, I will tell about the quality of education. I am worried much and much more about the quality of education. And this is something which matters not for Dr. Prakash, not for me, but for every citizen of our nation. A hotel suffers due to pandemic. The owner suffers. The employee suffers. A school suffers. The management and the owner suffers. The employees, the teacher suffers. But see the vicious cycle. The teacher suffers, the education system suffers. The education system suffers, our youth suffers. Our youth suffers, our future generation suffers. Our future generation suffers means our nation suffers. And now the last line. Let's pray that pandemic COVID-19 is over soon. School opens very, very soon. Government plays their own role to rescue the financial problem of the school. And the most important, parents keep the full trust in the school management and they see and they rather don't see the petty benefits of their self. ये हजार रुपया नहीं लगना चाहिए इतना नहीं लगना चाहिए for their petty saving they are putting the school management in financial problem leading to compromise with the quality of education. Let the parents, I am sure many of the listeners must be parents, otherwise also we all are parents some or the other way, but the parents should see that it's not something you are going to buy from the market. It was what rupees 1,000. By taking so many plea of pandemic, you could purchase it for 500 rupees, you save 500. It's not like that. by making you and cry. If you have been able to succeed in reducing the fees of a school, which the management did not like, which the teachers did not like, you have made a long-term impact on the financial of the school, leading to the long-term impact on the quality of the school and quality of your own children. So, my dear parents, with folded hands, I request you don't see the petty benefits of yourself. See the bigger picture. See mm, the school grow, fulfill their aim which they set for long 10 years. Your child will be there in a school for 10, 15, 30, 7, 8, 9 years. For these 1 or 2 years, don't try to make you and cry and ये खर्चा नहीं है बस का हमको लेना ही नहीं है बस में हमारा बच्चा जाता है नहीं बस आप purchase for you only my dear parents every expenditure is being happening don't pay the fuel cost so I mean to say people will have to understand the reality so with these finally let's take the school restart with a philosophy of NEP 2020 for a better education system for a better tomorrow, for a great Bharat. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. You have touched all the areas which are bothering the school community. I am saying the school community as such, not only teachers, not only management, but parents as well, at least enlightened parents, they are also worried the quality of education which is being affected in various ways. You have very rightly said, school is not for one day, children education is not for one day. It is a lifelong journey. Creating that habit of learning is a joint effort. Only parents cannot do, only school cannot do, whole society, everyone has to come together. And schools play very important role in creating the atmosphere. This financial impact is affecting more that learning environment than anything else. So I join Dr. Pansari in this appeal to everyone that learning environment should be protected at all cost so that long-term learning, long-term behavioral change, long-term skill improvement is not affected. And India now is one of the place where it can be the world leader. Our youth can take charge of the world because almost every big country is now aging. Indian youth are ready to go everywhere, but they can survive only they have some skills. Now Indians have best opportunity to work outside because the people who are working they have created at era that Indians are hard-working, intelligent people. We should continue this legacy. Schools have to play very big role. Parent support is very much important. Management, school management and teachers have to take big role. So it's only possible the main source that is school finance is taken care by everyone. Government comes out with the best of best rules, regulations and help. Parents come wholeheartedly to support. Teachers come out of their way to teach the children and teach them as possible. And management provides best possible infrastructure to do. And with that note, I want to thank you, Dr. Sir, Dr. Pansari, and we have Vice Chancellor Dr. Singh also with us, Director Ralgoval University with Ankur Pansari is also with us. So we are thankful to all the listeners. We have got so many appreciation through the YouTube and others, and we are getting live reports, live phone calls. So thank you, sir, for joining us, being with us, and this is a great decision. Certainly, with your support, we will try to take this Presidential Talks to the next height and take the pertinent questions, important questions, which are thought-provoking, which are burning, and raise some questions so that further debate can start and some outcome can come in future. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Vijay. Dr. Singh, thank you very much for being here. And it's our pleasure to be here and we'll invite you someday exclusive talk on your learned areas and expertise. We'll try to utilize in our field. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Singh can give his remarks.
Sir, I think that is the best part. If sir, if you can give your concluding remark and your observations.
Dr. Singh can give his
Yes,
concluding
sir.
remarks as well.
Sir, please, if you can give your remarks, we'll be very grateful to you and thankful to you.
No, I was just patiently listening to our Honorable Chancellor on the topic, very pertinent topic. And I think every point, I mean, the minutest of the point has been touched upon. And while running the institution with him for almost 11 years, I can say every word is spoken today, and especially on financials and all other aspects of education, which is very close to Professor Dr. Arun Prakash, to you and to me. And we know that he is a learned man, knows nitty-gritties, day-to-day activities of the university and the college and school. And definitely, this impact will be a very, very long-term impact on all of us, and especially on the schools. But I wish, pray to God and request the government that if at all they can give some financial leverage, some kind of financial help. So this pandemic time, what we have suffered in last 1.5 years or maybe another few months, can be a little bit, improved upon with the finances, more money. And I'm very sure about my promoters, especially Dr. Pansari, that whatever will happen in Royal Global University and Royal Global School, education will not suffer. And we have very, very enthusiastic chairman, enthusiastic chancellor, and the trust. And but then we definitely have suffered, and the financials will be a great concern for every. So, sir, thank you very much. It was really very interesting, and all the points being duly covered. And Dr. Arun Prakash, best wishes to you, and wish you many more, such webinars with Professor Dr. Pansari and anybody who can throw some light on this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And to our viewers, I want to inform that Royal Global University has done a lot of work, especially in pandemic. They have opened their door for the very big COVID hospital. I think 1,000 beds.
Yes.
1,000 COVID care center. COVID,
1,000 bed
1,000
COVID,
bedded COVID care center.
so 1,000 bedded COVID care center in the university campus is a very big impact on
The patients
the
are there.
Northeast and to everyone where people were suffering and hospital beds were not available. They were on the roads. These 1,000 people and then rotation. How many people have been benefited? So it's hats off to you, sir, for thinking of this. Generally, everyone was running away. You came forward, offered your premises to the government, and the progressive government. I could see that some government is taking a lot of initiatives, especially in education. Some more progressive things are coming, which maybe the so-called other states are also lacking behind. So Northeast, I have been so many years and working with you all. I have seen how education has taken leaps and bounds change in Northeast, and Royal Global Group has created a very big role in changing the DPS, and Royal Global University and the whole institution has made the change in the perception of education, that education is not only outside Northeast, but good quality education is available in Northeast itself. So thank you, sir, for believing in quality, practicing in quality, and delivering the quality. And with the people like Dr. S.P. Singh and the team and that you have, it's a really great marvels done in the field of education. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone of you for joining. It's my pleasure.